Welcome. My name is Krueger, and I'm very proud and happy to be included in this exhibition with Art and Bloom Gallery. And I just want to basically tell you a little bit about myself and the work. This work that I brought to this exhibit is called Cyanotype. It's actually an older process, and I think one of the reasons I wanted to go back in time was I turned 60 years old, and that kind of gives you a moment of like, oh my gosh, you know, I've been on this earth for 60 years, but I've been actually taking pictures professionally for 30 of those years. So that made me think to the beginning of my photography, and that all started with a darkroom class in college. Back in 1980, we actually made our cameras that we used in our class, and I still have this camera. Oatmeal box. It's a simple pinhole camera. If you're not familiar with it, there is just a very tiny pinhole that lets in light. You basically, in the darkroom, you put your negative or film in here, cover it up, and then you use this as your shutter to slide it open, and that gives you your exposure. This is actually from 1980, the building that we actually had our darkroom class in. So that's kind of cool that it's so simple. It's survived that many years of use, and it's still in use today. I wanted to upgrade that a little bit because I think every artist wants to improve, and so I made a new pinhole camera, put my goofy little grin on there. But what I found out is the materials they used on that box was actually better. It was thicker, so I had to reinforce it. So sometimes newer is not always better. And I think my wife kind of got my hint that I was looking at pinhole cameras, and she found online this Kickstarter campaign. This is a company nestled in between Italy and Croatia is Slovenia. And this company had a Kickstarter campaign where they made these beautiful wooden pinhole cameras. And so for my 60th birthday, she got me one of these, which is really cool because you can actually use 4x5-inch film. So you're not restricted to just one shot going in and out of the darkroom. So that was great, and I love getting back into the darkroom. It was a simple process. It was also a hands-on process. This image here I actually shot with the pinhole camera that my wife got me. This is out in Oakdale Cemetery. One of the things that challenged me was COVID-19. A lot of our lives were disrupted. I was no longer traveling to do art festivals, which I usually do. And so having all that time at home, that brought me not just with the pinhole camera, but it got me interested in a process I've really never explored before, which was cyanotypes. And that's where this has led me. With all that time I had, I could experiment and find out the love of something very simple.
Greetings. I'm going to take you through the process of making a cyanotype. It's simple, straightforward. You need two chemicals. You're going to mix those together either in dry form, or you can make it easy on yourself and buy them already mixed up. It's part A, part B, 1-to-1 solution. Once that solution is mixed up, you're going to paint it on watercolor paper or any kind of heavy paper that can take dousing in water. You're going to have to develop it in actual water. So I paint mine on with a sponge brush. I like that. Some people like a traditional brush. That works just as fine as well. After that, you're letting the paper dry. You want to do this in dim light, anywhere away from a window because it is light sensitive, especially UV light.
Chemicals mixed up, got my sponge, and you just want to coat. A nice even coat. Okay, now that the paper has dried, it's simply a matter of putting the negative over the paper and then a sheet of glass over that. We're going to keep it tight around the frame by using clips. Exposing cyanotypes, you have the main variable being the sun. Is it a clear sky? Is the sun fully out overhead at an angle? I've had exposures anywhere from 3.5 minutes all the way up to 20 minutes if it's a cloudy day. So that's the most important thing that I find if I want consistency, that I try to make sure I'm exposing my cyanotypes on a nice, clear, sunny day. Right, Mick? He doesn't care. Okay, we've got it in full sun, and we'll set the timer for 3.5 minutes. Now that the paper's exposed, we just want to put it in water. The simplest thing to expose these. And washing them off with water. There you go. We've got the print washed. I'm going to show you another cool technique to darken it. To get a nice Prussian blue, you take hydrogen peroxide, just a little bit. Look at that. Look at that chemical reaction. Nice dark blue. That's so cool. There you go. And then we'll just wash it again. That's it. So one of the things about cyanotype that I failed to mention that is kind of important is, like a lot of things, it started out as a scientific process. I believe the gentleman was John Herschel, who was a scientist, might have been an astronomer, who developed the process. And it was basically just to reproduce notes and diagrams. It became known as blueprints. You might even know that from draftsmen or whoever. But it took a wonderful lady, Anna Atkins, to push that into more art form when she created her own book of seaweed and ferns. And so that pushed that scientific process a little bit further away into the art world. And I find it so fascinating that so many times the science is taken into the art world. And to me, it's just also a lovely reminder that it took a woman to develop something creative like that. These two images here really speak to me because I'm in love with cypress trees, and part of that reason is they're always in the water, and they create such wonderful reflections in the water. This was taken here in Wilmington, and this was taken down in Florida. But I find myself pining to be on the water, and I have a kayak that I take a lot of photography with. So again, it balances my need to be outside and my love of nature. I've always loved birds. As a child, I just had a fascination with birds, and remember the migratory pattern of the robins when they came to Michigan, where I grew up. That was just always a hallmark of spring was coming, the robins were here. But that has carried into my professional life. Is now I photograph birds. I've got wonderful Nikon equipment that I use. This was taken with a 500mm lens. This is a local resident bird, our barred owl. You may hear them in the evening. A fun thing that I've experimented not just with cyanotype is like, well, how can we push it even further? Is I decided to make these wood blocks. So I'm using a resin coating on the cyanotype, and that changes it up a little bit. It creates that high gloss that you wouldn't normally get with a cyanotype. But I find it really fun, and people have had good response to it. One of the things I also wanted to do and experimented with is a lot of people would take an image that was this, and then they'd stain it. This image has been stained in a bath of tea, black tea. So I would boil up about 4 packs of tea and then put that in my darkroom tray, and stains it just a nice color. So the whites aren't white anymore, but this kind of a nice sepia tone. So that was also fun to experiment. I also explored the avenue of not just limiting to a pinhole. This was taken on a digital Nikon, but it was also manipulated where the background has been manipulated too. So it was just a freeing process and something I've certainly enjoyed.